Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America, website thisweekinamerica.us. Our guest on the program, author Wix Simon, author, scientist, speaker, and musician. He worked for the Environmental Protection Agency for many years, now is a consultant. Principal and owner of Ted Simon LLC, provides consulting and scientific support in the area of toxicology. Besides A Lost Gun, the book we'll be talking about on today's program, Wix is also the author of the novel A Toxic Assault. He has always wanted to write crime novels, put them on the bucket list, and he's crossing them off now as he does so successfully. He plays the fiddle, enjoys black and white photography, and he's with us on This Week in America. Wix, welcome to the program. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Rick. It's great to be here.
Really enjoyed A Lost Gun, a riveting murder mystery, two detectives sacrificing everything in order to take down a crime ring fueled by a cold-hearted, determined villain. And I say that, and we'll talk about it in the book, on the program. I don't want to give too much of the book away, but I tell you, the reviews are excellent. They really like the authenticity of the book. They like the characters. They like the plot twist. It has to be really rewarding as an author when you start reading reviews and hearing from people that purchase the book. They're like, they're enjoying what I'm doing. I'm making a difference in their lives.
It does, and certainly the approval and approbation from readers is a great thing about being a writer. But there's it's a lonely job. But working things out is really a voyage of self-discovery that to some extent is its own reward. As far as A Lost Gun goes, I can give the readers a little bit, or readers who are not familiar with the book, a little bit. An inexperienced female detective loses her gun in a shootout, and it turns up later as the murder weapon used to kill a prominent attorney. He's gone out looking for his runaway teenage daughter, who has become the target of a human trafficking ring. And if you want to start thinking about human traffickers, they're about as bad as people can get. And I think the villain in this story, and you read it, Rick, is certainly about as bad as you can get.
Yes. And these are people and crimes that we basically from real life. Right? These are things that we hear about. Maybe when we hear about them, we're not because we're hearing them in a short news story or a couple paragraphs in a newspaper article. We really don't understand how perverted these people are. And as you read the book, it's like, yeah, these are bad guys, real bad guys.
Well, yeah, they stop at nothing to get what they want. And there's several places in the book where I make that clear. Would it be appropriate for me to read a short section?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay. The runaway daughter is named Jennifer. There's a crime ring in the book, and the leader of this crime ring is a man named Ron Niles. Ron Niles and Jennifer come together twice. And what I'm going to read is the second time they come together. The first time she doesn't get away from him, and the second time she does.
Yeah, she's determined the second time. It's like, okay, I'm not going with this guy.
No. She has managed to get away from the traffickers in a plane crash. Anyway, she's riding in a police car at this time, and she's about to get moved into another police car where Ron Niles, the villain, he's in that other police car. No way I'm getting in a car with him, Jennifer hissed. Then she opened her door and was outside the patrol car in an instant. Niles looked up. The girl kept the unit between herself and Niles, eyeing him warily. Deputy, can we talk a minute? Yeah, okay. Harper stepped out of the car. What's she saying? She looks scared as hell. Niles played dumb. She said, well, that you raped her. Come on, Deputy. She was kidnapped, right? She obviously has me confused with someone else. Yeah, Harper said and furrowed his brow. But what am I supposed to do here? I can't let her go with you. At the very least, I've got to file a report on what she said. Smiling at Niles, conciliatory. Even if we both know it's bogus. Okay, let's go talk to her. Walk over there with me, please, Deputy. As the two cops eased around the car, Jennifer kept moving away from them, keeping as much distance as possible between Niles and herself. Come on, Miss Richards, said Harper. Won't you please go with the sergeant? I'm going to file a report on what you said. No way, she spat at them. They kept easing around the car, and she kept moving away. Jennifer was next to the left rear fender of the Coweta County Police Unit, standing in the road, when a loaded hay truck towing a trailer, also full of hay, rumbled slowly up the hill towards them. They all turned to look. Jennifer saw her chance and darted out into the path of the hay truck. I hope I can run on this ankle, she thought briefly. The ankle turned out to be healthy enough, and she was quick enough that the truck missed her by a good 20 feet. By the time the hay truck and trailer lumbered past the two cops, Jennifer had disappeared into the thick woods on the other side of the road. Niles rushed across the road and plunged through the woods after her. Harper followed him. They searched for her trail and zigzagged through the leafy understory. The leaves were so thick that they could only see 10 feet in front of them. Within 5 minutes, it became obvious that pursuing the girl was useless. We'll never find her, said Harper. Not in these woods. Keep looking, Niles said harshly. Now, that gives not a lot away, but it also gives you an idea of my style and some of these characters with really pretty implacable wishes.
Yes, and the book is called A Lost Gun. Our guest on the program is Wix Simon, W-I-X. His website is wixsimon.com. Book's available at Amazon, available as well information on the book at Wix's website. And you go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on directly. I love that excerpt from the book, and it's just a few paragraphs later, there's another one of those little twists and turns and curveballs that you keep throwing out there. How much fun is that as a writer when you're like, okay, I'm going to inject a little, I'm going to keep people off guard here. I'm going to hit them with this right now. That's got to be fascinating as an author when you create your own reality, basically.
Well, that's true. That's true. And what you want to do, especially in this genre, thrillers, is when you end up a chapter, you've maybe have some questions that you've raised in the book. You don't answer those questions, you raise another question. And that's how you keep the readers involved, by having all of these unanswered questions, all of these things that need to resolve themselves, that the reader, because he or she loves the characters, since the author has to love the characters, the reader becomes involved with the characters and has to know what's going to happen. So there are all these loose ends hanging out there. You keep reading to find out.
It's interesting in reading your background, you ask the question why, and the question why is asked a lot during the course of the book that you ask, and then you answer it for the reader. Why is a question that you're 6, 7 years old, and you were one of those kids that every time something was presented to you, you wanted to know why. Everything was a big experiment to you, and you needed to have an answer, which led to the career in science. Talk about that fascination. Most kids just accept and go on. You want to know, wait a minute, stop. Why is that like that?
Well, I found the world, let's say at age 4, 5, and 6, I found the world to be a place that was both marvelous and confusing. And I wanted to understand it more. And I thought to myself, the little bit of science that I got in first grade was presented in such a way that I thought that if I spent time learning science, I could maybe start to understand the world a little better. So that as I moved on in school, 4th grade, I got to earth science. 7th grade, I got to chemistry and physics, more chemistry and physics in high school. I was a sponge. I was completely ready to absorb all that information. And I ended up getting a PhD in biology, and I have a good career in science. I bring in a lot of that knowledge into the books, and I think it gives me a little bit of an advantage in that I can provide some realism.
Well, it's interesting. I mentioned, the background with EPA, the fact that you were doing consulting in toxicology. And as you're reading the book, you can sense that you know what you're talking about. So there really is sort of all of your past life, past experiences, you're now able to draw on as you're writing books like A Lost Gun.
I've gotten advice from some people who are fairly high up in publishing that an authoritative voice is one of the best things you can provide to a reader. And so I'm looking, why not play to my strengths?
Yeah.
So I have another book that's almost done. You brought up a toxic assault. Well, I grew increasingly unhappy with it. And, in these days, you can actually pull those things back and fix them.
Yes.
And I'm doing that right now. And I'm working on, the book has been renamed Poisoned. The basic plot is the same. Imagine a conspiracy to commit genocide by loading up playgrounds at African American churches with toxic waste. That's all I'll say about it. I'm working on a rewrite of that book right now. I'm very close to finishing, and at that point, I'm going to explore options for publishing it. I've got to start to a third book that has a tentative title right now called Any Mother Would Feel That Way. It's about the basic situation and is where the mother-in-law is poisoning the wife with inorganic mercury in herbal products, and goes on from there. And there's several reasons for this, and this is a very early book, and I'm still sort of working out some of the details.
Again, drawing on your life as a scientist, someone studying toxicology.
Exactly right. In 2014, I published a textbook that is used in graduate public health schools and civil engineering schools. It's called Environmental Risk Assessment, a Toxicological Approach. And the publisher characterizes as written in a lively and engaging style. And I tried to make it interesting for the students because, I'm sure you've had textbooks that are dead boring.
Oh, yes, yes.
And so I tried to make this one, not so much that way. And I even tried to sort of demonstrate the way things should happen with a little bit of dialogue. I like writing dialogue. And I would have conversations between a scientist involved in the project and the project manager, such that the decisions that they made in the course of a 30-second conversation are those decisions that sometimes groups take a year to make because of lack of trust. So I was trying to demonstrate what happens and the way things should be done when people trust each other and the decision process works correctly.
And from a student standpoint, this has to be like, wow, I can actually read this, understand it, and get something out of it.
I'll tell you, one of the greatest feelings I've ever had was when I taught a class that used this textbook, and last year in 2014. The class started in January, and so I provided students the galley proofs of the first chapter before they were able to because the book was not available yet. It was available at the beginning of February, and I had two of them come up to me after class and said, "Wow, I read the first chapter and it's really well written."
That's the ultimate compliment. Our guest on This Week in America is Wix Simon, W-I-X Simon. His book we're talking about is called Lost Gun. The book is available at Wix's website. Information on Wix as well available there at wixsimon.com. You can log on directly to his website by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Time going by too quickly, talking about some of the future projects you've got coming up. You're working on a nonfiction book, too, I understand.
I'm thinking about a nonfiction book. I've pitched this to a publisher before, and I don't think they had the nerve to take it on. So the title of the book, tentatively, of course, because it's not, I have a book proposal, but not a book written yet. And that's how nonfiction proceeds. You start with a proposal, and then if somebody is interested, you write the book from the proposal. It's called Good Intentions and Wrecking Balls, Regulation, Science, and Ethics in the 21st Century. I want to deal with some things. Why in the United States do we pay so much more for our pharmaceutical products than everywhere else in the world? It's because we're funding drug development. So the United States is essentially funding drug development for the rest of the world. Is that fair? Now, I'm not going to answer that question, especially not here. And I've not done near enough research to answer it here. And I probably won't answer it in the book. But I think pondering issues like that is important. There are a number of decisions made, again, in the same area by the FDA, where some very old treatments that have been shown to work are not available in the United States and are not on the radar of many medical practitioners because of the influence of pharmaceutical companies. There are a number of decisions that are made in the area of environmental regulation that are based on how can I characterize it in kindly, less than complete science.
Yes.
And there are, you start to look at who is influencing who in these sorts of areas. And conspiracy is too strong a word, but there are, you can see who benefits.
It's an important discussion, and I really hope somebody is interested, so you go ahead with that, and we can have you back in the program to talk about that. A couple minutes left in the show. I'm fascinated by your early childhood, and again, I'll wrap it up with the science. When you won a science award in junior high school, and the teacher said it was basically because of your curiosity. How important has that word been to you in your life as a scientist? And even as a novelist, curiosity. It's something that not many of us really have anymore, or really try to enhance.
It's very important, and I honestly haven't lost it. You want to know, you take something on. It may take a fair amount of effort to understand more about it. But if the topic is interesting, if the subject matter is interesting, there's no reason not to go on with that, because there's a great payoff, just in terms of emotional and intellectual satisfaction from learning what you might learn. Now, and I'll put it this way: writing novels is not that much different, because the area you're learning about is yourself, and so it's very much that voyage of self-discovery. I had an early experience with writing. And I went away to boarding school in 7th grade, and we had to write a 1,500-word essay at the end of the year. And I sort of lifted the concept of a story of plagiarism from Boy's life, and I wrote this most of the story that I turned in was this long soliloquy that I wrote about guilt. So a young man that age, 12, 13 years old in 7th grade, plagiarizes a story, turns it in, and feels so guilty about it. Anyway, I got it back and I got an A. And in 8th grade, we had to do the same thing. And I was like, okay, I'm pressed for time. Let me just recycle this. And so I took the same story, tweaked it a bit, kept that soliloquy about guilt, turned it in, and I got another A. Did the same thing in 9th grade. I learned two things. One, that I was probably a pretty good writer. And and that's a pretty good affirmation at that young an age.
Yes.
Number two is that my teachers didn't talk to each other.
Fortunately, they hadn't up to that point. Wick Simon, our guest on the program, a couple minutes left. It's interesting that in talking about writing, you say writing's enjoyable. The only sad part of this is when I finish a book, how difficult is it when you wrap things up and the scenario this world that you've created, these characters that you've created, it's final. It's over with them now. How difficult is that to walk away? And can you really walk away?
It's a sad time. It's honestly a very sad time, because you get involved in the book. It's like a child. It's like raising a child in some ways. So you live with a book for let's say 2 years. Get up every day and write away on that book. And at the end of it, you're done. You're happy with it. So there's that is the good part. But at the same time, it's like not seeing an old friend again. So there is a bit of sadness there. It is a sad time finishing a book.
The book, the most recent that we're talking about, is A Lost Gun. Wick Simon, our guest on the program. Wix is W-I-X, Simon, S-I-M-O-N. His website is wixsimon.com. The book A Lost Gun is available all across the country. You'll find information at Amazon, of course, at Wix's website, wixsimon.com. And you can link on directly by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Wix, a pleasure to have you in the program. We will stay in touch when you're back with the new book, Poison. Love to have you back to talk about that and many more things. An exciting career that you've got going. It's been a pleasure to have you with us on the show. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much, Rick. I really enjoyed talking with you.
It was our pleasure. You're listening to This Week in America. Our website, thisweekinamerica.us.